Hello everyone from this college course History of Western Civilization 1. Today we are going to look into the Italian Renaissance and the lives of important people whose work remain an inspiration and other parts of this period that impacted overall society. Part 1. Rise of the Italian Renaissance. Even though many scholars argue that the Italian Renaissance was the onset of an early modern period or a revolution against the Dark Ages, it was actually the end of the Middle Ages when Italy would take leadership of European culture. Among the distinctive forms of culture, the most important cultural innovation is Renaissance humanism. This is when people began to gain interest in classic Greek and Roman philosophy, literature, and culture. Thus it affected how people began to see the world. The Italian Renaissance was a period of cultural movement. It drastically changed many people's lifestyles in Europe, including artistic, political, economic, and architectural aspects that were also part of these advancements. The Italian Renaissance originated in the late medieval period in Italy, but it had spread to other parts of Europe throughout the high medieval period. Here is an overview of the three major stages of the Italian Renaissance: early, high, and late Renaissance. This transition between the 15th and 16th century is also known as the Revival period, when the Italian Renaissance had reached its peak. But why did the Italian Renaissance come to an end? At some point, the Italian Renaissance declined and suffered a social and economic crisis. A simple way to say that the answer for cultural decline was the oppressive atmosphere and censorship brought on by the Catholic Counter-Reformation. Moreover, in this video, the trial of Galileo Galilei, will talk more about the end of the Revival period. Before, we will look into the many accomplishments made by the most significant people who had certain qualities and made up this era from the earliest to the latest. The names of the most famous people originated from the Italian Renaissance. For example, Lorenzo de' Medici, descendant of the Medici family, Amerigo Vespucci, and Galileo Galilei. Part 2. The Medici, godfathers of the Renaissance. As rulers of Florence, Italy, since the cradle of the Italian Renaissance, the Medici Familia was a powerful family that influenced European history, and they created innovative banking systems in the 15th century between 1397 to 1494. Florence, Italy would become a cultural hotspot, with the Medici family backing up the Italian Renaissance and creating an environment where art and humanism would prosper. The family's traditional regard for science and arts was passed on from one generation to the other, and this family's legacy has lasted for hundreds of years. Moreover, Cosimo de' Medici, who established the Medici family as legitimate rulers of Florence, favored Donatello's art and commissioned this sculpture. Donatello's David proves how powerful the Medici family was because a symbolic statue was made to represent their family values. The bronze statue of David, who appears as a hero in the Bible, was made by Donatello, an early Renaissance sculptor. However, experts dispute that Donatello made this sculpture to represent his homoerotism. The Medici family could identify with this statue that symbolized all that was wonderful about the city of Florence and the embodiment of lengthy ruling. It was adorned in the palace's courtyard in the 1430s and then relocated in the Museo Nazionale del Bargello in Florence, Italy. Let's mention a descendant of the Medici family who goes by the name of Lorenzo de' Medici, born January 1st, 1449, and died April 8th, 1492. He had an important role during the early Renaissance because he used political strategies and sponsored talented artists such as Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Botticelli, among other artists. As a member of the Medici family, he belonged to one of the wealthiest families of all times. He had many followers in Florence, Italy, and other places where his presence was needed since he was a successful statesman, banker, and de facto ruler of the Florentine Republic. Lorenzo did good acts like liberating and clothing galley slaves. He was honored to even after his death by his family and many artists among others, such as patrons, philosophers, and scholars, he encountered frequently because he encouraged the development of Renaissance humanism, and was an enthusiastic patron during the highly advanced stage and golden age of Florence. When his health deteriorated by gout disease, the disease of kings, he asked to spend the last days of his life in the Familia Villa in Careggi, a patrician village near Florence in Tuscany. The skeletal bones of several members of the Medici family, taken from the tombs from the Church of San Lorenzo in Florence, have been examined to show evidence that this disease ran in the Medici family. Research studies conclude that the cause of this disease has to be searched in environmental factors, since both historical and paleonutritional studies demonstrate that the diet of this aristocratic court was rich in meat and wine. Part 3. Renaissance Architecture. Florence, Italy. The Renaissance architecture emerged during the 15th century until the 16th century. We will explore characteristics of the Italian Renaissance architectural imagery. This is seen in the styles of structures and paintings of European buildings, castles, and homes. The Renaissance architectural style replaced the Gothic style of cities, and in many paintings this new version was primarily used. The architecture employed by artists in their paintings was considered the protagonist of the artwork. Other factors that distinguish the Renaissance architecture from others is the type of shapes, materials, and decorations used to make these structures seem attractive and steady by viewers. The Sistine Chapel shows the type of architecture used to build chapels during the Italian Renaissance. It was designed by Florentine architect Baccio Pontelli for Pope Sixtus V. He was Pope in 1471 through 1484. The Pope wanted a building where he could make a home for the Palace Chapel in Vatican City. Also, it could be used by the papal court to hold ceremonial assemblies. The Sistine Chapel was standing between 1473 and 1481. The architect in control was Giovannino di Dolci during the Renaissance architecture era. This site has no decorations on the outside of the building and has arched windows and a barrel-vaulted ceiling. Afterward, the inside would be covered from floor to ceiling with religious art frescoes painted by the most famous early Renaissance artists. This illustration previews the reconstruction interior of the Sistine Chapel as of 1508, when it had a starred vault designed by Pier Matteo di Amelia. This was before Michelangelo had started doing art in the ceiling. Part 4. Amerigo Vespucci. Amerigo Vespucci was born in Florence, Italy in 1454 and died in Seville, Spain in 1512. He was a merchant, cartographer, and explorer who participated in early voyages to the New World in the 16th century in search of treasures and new trade routes. An important discovery occurred during the Renaissance exploration period, when new land was found in the Americas. An essential source that identifies the Discovery Age is a letter written by Vespucci. He described his voyages and discoveries of a separate continent. The letter, originally published in Latin, talks about his voyage to Brazil in 1501 through 1502, serving under the Portuguese flag. This letter served as evidence of these adventures and that he tried to maintain communication with one of his good friends, Lorenzo Pietro Francesco de' Medici, in 1503, who also is an important figure that shapes an understanding of the High Renaissance. Part 5. Galileo Galilei. Many drawings and writings were created by Galileo Galilei, who was born in 1564 in Pisa, Italy, and died in 1642 in Arcetri, Italy. Sketches of the moon and the stars, dialogues and letters have been found from this Italian astronomer, physicist, and engineer, sometimes known as a polymath. He invented improved devices that greatly impacted late Renaissance society. His theories about the solar system disproved most misconceptions about this topic, sometimes defying laws against certain studies. Galileo turned his ideas into new inventions. These instruments were utilized during the Italian Renaissance and today to make discoveries about science, physics, and space. For example, Galileo Galilei invented the geometric and military compass. It was his first commercial scientific instrument in 1597. This compass provides evidence of the types of inventions by famous people such as Galileo Galilei. This tool was used during the Italian Renaissance for several functions, such as a calculator for merchants to calculate exchanges in monetary rates, and soldiers would use the compass for military training. Possibly, the compass was introduced by Galileo to Cosimo II de' Medici with a copy of a manual, Le operazioni del compasso geometrico e militare, in 1606. This device was not invented until half of the 16th century, when advances in science were developed and encouraged more scientific inventions during the late Renaissance that would make it easier to perform arithmetical and geometric calculations. Galileo Galilei's claims on a cosmic world would cause conflict with the Catholic Church, which led to the end of the Italian Renaissance. This painting of Galileo Galilei standing in front of the Roman Inquisition depicts the day of the trial when the Holy Office interrogated him. The painting was created in 1857 by Cristiano Banti. Based on Galileo's beliefs of the Copernican planetary system, which was considered a crime, he was detained several times in the year 1633 and later sentenced to life imprisonment for teaching or defending this model idea contrary to the Holy Scriptures. Additionally, a movement known as the Counter-Reformation, mentioned previously, involved the Catholic Church that censored artists and writers responsive of the Protestant Reformation that led to the culmination of creativity and artists feared persecution. The Italian Renaissance suffered from many other factors, including the fall of Rome when it was invaded, bad government, and negligence by citizens. Also, changes in trade routes would make the economy decline and art was too expensive to afford. There is no doubt that this time was a good, joyful, and classic time in European history, and it changed people's perspective of the world. However, there is an ongoing debate that recalls this period was not much different from the Dark Ages, and that the eras at some point joined together. In my opinion, the Italian Renaissance was a significant time of great advancements that helped overcome a moment of crisis. Thank you for watching my video.